First tonight, emotions are running high in Minneapolis, where crowds of people have been protesting against the fatal shooting of a nurse, Alex Pretty, by federal immigration officers. He was the second U.S. citizen to be killed by immigration agents in the city in less than a month, less than 3 weeks, in fact, after the death of Renee Good, a 37-year-old American citizen who was fatally shot in Minneapolis by ICE agents. The exact circumstances of Alex Pretty's killing are disputed, but it took place amid continuing protests against attempts by federal agents to find and detain illegal immigrants. Correspondents say it is notable that we're now hearing from some high-profile Republican lawmakers who are questioning ICE tactics and calling for an independent investigation into this latest shooting. One senator put it very simply: the credibility of ICE is at stake. And in a rare intervention in politics, the former president, Bill Clinton, has described the events in Minneapolis as horrible scenes that he never thought would take place in America. He said masked federal agents had seized people, including children, from their homes and arrested, beaten, tear-gassed and killed peaceful citizens, while what he called the people in charge had impeded investigations. As outrage continues to mount, President Trump said his administration is reviewing everything that happened in the city and hinted at the possibility of immigration enforcement officials being withdrawn eventually. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Trump declined to say whether the agent who shot Mr. Pretty had acted appropriately. For his part, the Border Control Commander, Greg Bovino, continued to insist the agents acted in self-defense. But videos of the incident seem to show that Alex Pretty was not holding a gun, but his phone, before agents jumped on him and bundled him to the ground. They removed what appears to be a gun from his waistband. He's then shot 10 times as he's lying on the ground. The governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, has appealed for calm on the streets and repeated his demand for all ICE and Border Patrol agents to be removed from the city.
During this operation, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The agents attempted to disarm the individual, but he violently resisted. Fearing for his life and the lives and safety of fellow officers, a Border Patrol agent fired defensive shots. Medics on the scene immediately delivered medical aid to the subject, but the subject was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 loaded magazines and no accessible ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Then, about 200 rioters arrived at the scene and began to obstruct and assault law enforcement. Crowd control measures have been deployed for the safety of the public and law enforcement.
If it was the intention of Donald Trump to make an example of Minnesota, then I'm damn proud of the example that the world's seeing. We believe in law and order in this state. We believe in peace. And we believe that Donald Trump needs to pull these 3,000 untrained agents out of Minnesota before they kill another person. And we're up here telling another story of a Minnesotan just trying to live their life without the interference. To Americans who are watching this right now, and I don't know, maybe you're watching it with curiosity, bewilderment, horror, scorn, or sympathy. I've got a question for all of you. What side do you want to be on? The side of an all-powerful federal government that can kill, injure, menace, and kidnap its citizens off the streets? Or on the side of a nurse at the VA hospital who died bearing witness to such government? Or the side of a mother whose last words were, "I'm not mad at you"? You're allowed to decide at any point that you're not with this anymore. If you voted for this administration, heck, even if you thought Operation Metro Surge was a good idea, sounded like the thing to do a month ago, you're still allowed to look at what's happening here in Minnesota and say, this isn't what I voted for and this isn't what I want. So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state? You thought fear, violence, and chaos is what you wanted from us, and you clearly underestimated the people of this state and nation. We are tired, but we're resolved. We're peaceful, but we'll never forget.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from Vermont by Arise special correspondent James Blue. Good to see you, James. So another shocking escalation in this U.S. immigration saga. A day later, following that fatal shooting in Minneapolis, there are clearly conflicting accounts of it. How sure can we be of the facts right now?
Well, Charles, good to be with you this evening. I think we can be fairly sure of the facts as we have seen them on the various videos that have circulated both on the internet and on television stations. Clearly, Mr. Pretty was a man who was attempting to assist others who were on the ground. At the time that he was on the ground, it was discovered that he did have a firearm. That firearm was removed from him. And at that point, he was shot. And he was shot, I think, about 6 or 7 times. He was shot in the back. He did not present any threat to anyone. He did have a cell phone in his hand, which he was using to record. And I think that is sort of the facts as we have seen them. They're not the facts as they have been depicted by the members of the Trump administration, both the Deputy Attorney General, the head of Homeland Security, and others. But, we also know that this incident has really been galvanizing and almost a turning point in this sort of issue with the ICE agents scooping up people who are in the United States illegally. Things are really, really bad, and the fear is that they could get a lot worse.
And just tell us, James, a bit about the man who was shot dead. I mean, his name, as you said, was Alex Pretty, and his family say he cared deeply about people and was upset by President Trump's immigration crackdown in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Alex Pretty seems to be a very particular, quite special young man. He was an intensive care unit nurse. He worked in the Veterans Hospital, so he was a federal employee. He came and started working at the hospital just as he was out of college. He didn't really know what he wanted to do, and he joined a research team within the Veterans Administration Hospital there in Minneapolis. He delivered pizzas at night, and his real big hobby was mountain biking, and which is one of the reasons he lived in Minneapolis, because there are lots of biking trails around the city. He was sort of known to be compassionate, kind, generous, and just a really sort of great guy. And, the sort of image that the administration has tried to put on him as a sort of rabble rouser, rioter just doesn't fit. That wasn't his MO, and it certainly doesn't seem to be the reason he was there. He was there to assist some of the people who had been injured and people who had been there standing up and witnessing what the US government was actually doing.
And there seems to be significant conflict between jurisdictions. I mean, local authorities in Minneapolis, we're told, attempted to begin an investigation, but were blocked from doing so by the federal government. I mean, with those two separate jurisdictions coming forward with such sort of different versions of events, I wonder if there is a way of arriving at what could be regarded as an independent scrutiny. How do we get to a point where something that is independent, that people across the board, whatever their political view is, can look at that investigation and trust the outcome of it?
Yeah, Charles, I think that's going to be very difficult in this situation, simply because the federal government has really banned the local authorities from participating. Generally, what happens in this case, the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department usually is the group that sort of takes the lead in conjunction with a local law enforcement group, and they investigate jointly. The federal government has said they don't want to do that. And so, in the absence of sort of a joint investigation between local, state, and federal officials, I think we're left with people deciding based on the videos that they've been able to see, deciding sort of what they feel about it. And it is really unfortunate that there won't be an independent view. However, I know the state of Minnesota is in court today trying to make all of the ICE actions stop, at least briefly. And so perhaps if there is some type of stay or some type of pause, there might be a effort to do some type of joint investigation. But at the moment, it's two separate trains.
And on the streets now in Minneapolis, James, what's the atmosphere like as a result of what has happened?
Well, I think on the streets of Minneapolis, people are continuing to stand up and witness what has been happening and to them by the federal government. They're very, very concerned that it is just not appropriate for U.S. agents to act this way. One of the things that over the weekend, one commentator said, where else but in Minneapolis with federal law enforcement and in Gaza with the Hamas fighters do you have masked men running around taking things into their own hands and doing things. I don't think I ever would have thought that U.S. federal law enforcement would ever be compared to Hamas militants, but that's where we are today.
And James, stay with us because we'd like to get your assessment of this next story. A monster winter storm affecting 200 million people has been hitting parts of the United States. It's a massive polar vortex that's affected virtually everywhere, from Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, and Texas in the south to New Mexico in the west and up to Massachusetts, New York, and Washington in the northeast. In some parts of the U.S., temperatures have plunged to minus 40 degrees. At least 10 people are reported to have died. The Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, has issued a warning about the dangers of snow, ice, freezing rain, and life-threatening wind chills that will be sustained for several days. Correspondents say a major concern is the accumulation of ice, which is affecting power infrastructure and leading to mass outages. Thousands of flights have been grounded and more than 1 million people left without power. At least 23 states have already declared a state of emergency, and people are being warned to stay off the roads. And our ICE correspondent James Blue is still with me on the line from Vermont, which I understand is also under a big freeze. An absolutely massive storm stretching 2,000 miles right across the US. I mean, how remarkable is it that the storm system from places like New Mexico and Louisiana to New York, heading up to Washington, blanketing everything in snow? Because, I mean, when you think of places like Louisiana, you don't think of this kind of cold weather, do you?
No, you don't think of cold weather, and you also don't have the preparation for it. And so, there are over 230 million people affected. 24 US states have emergency declarations, and it's the highest number of counties ever that have been under this sort of winter storm watch. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places that have lost power, and so people haven't been able to heat their homes. They haven't been able to keep their food fresh. And so they've gone into these warming centers where they are fed, clothed, housed, and they have a bit of comfort. The real issue, Charles, is the freezing rain in places like the South, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, where they did get some snow, but more importantly, they got freezing rain, which really has an impact on the power lines, and it has a very, very bad impact on the roads. So in a way, the U.S. is at a standstill today. 11,000 flights have been canceled. 4,700 flights have been delayed, and people are being told to sort of shelter in place, stay inside. Here in Vermont, we're next to the Canadian border. It is -9 Celsius, and that is probably going to be right near the high today.
Well, that sounds murderously cold. And of course, I mean, we're talking there of Louisiana, Texas, and all the rest of it, places that are not used to this kind of cold. But even in places like the East Coast, where you spend much of your time in New York, places that are pretty battle hardened when it comes to these snowstorms. I understand that this is so severe that there are strict warnings from the authorities not to take any risks. I mean, how much are the authorities able to help if this is such a huge storm and there is so much snow?
Yeah, that's one of the big problems, Charles. The storm has really done a job on everyone. And so the emergency responses have also been delayed. And so what they're saying to people is stay inside, try to stay warm. If you didn't move to a warming center now, it's probably too late. Because what they don't want is people outside really exposing themselves to the elements. And when that happens, they have the potential for further damage, frostbite, hypothermia, and all of the things related to being so cold. One of the things that everyone was looking at back in New York, snowstorms really test mayors. And our new mayor, Mr. Mamdani, in the initial phase, seems to have really passed with flying colors. He got the roads cleared, he got the warming centers open, and people got fed. They were able to stay warm. And so in the sort of first blush, he seems to have passed that test. But the size, scale, and just the sheer depth of temperature means that this is a very, very different storm. And we haven't had many like these in many, many years. And so, yes, the Northeast is prepared, but they haven't been prepared for this level of cold. And that's the real difference. It's just so cold that it's very difficult when people get into trouble to both reach them and to get the emergency services that they need actually to them.
Well, the good thing is that you sound like you're in a pretty warm place there. I don't hear chattering teeth or sort of shaking hands. So that's a good sign. James, thank you very much indeed. James Blue is our special correspondent. He was talking to me on the line from a very cold Vermont.